All right, welcome back and thanks for staying with us. It's still Rapid Dawn right here on Rapid TV. And my name is Martha Alu.
And of course, I am Victor Arke. Welcome to the big conversation this beautiful Thursday morning.
Yes, and the educational system here in Nigeria is one that we don't want to start to draw bags or draw conclusions on the educational system here in Nigeria, but it's one education to start with is the bedrock of the nation. We have heard this many times. In fact, in debates, we've heard it where people will say education is the bedrock of Nigeria. And it's important for us to take education seriously because every nation, every good nation or transformation in a nation starts with education. And the moment people are able to get educated, their lives can become transformed. But you see, the educational system here in Nigeria, the federal government has unveiled a new school curriculum. But Nigeria has a long history of changing policies that sometimes fail in implementation. So today, we will be having a conversation where we will be discussing the intricacies of the new schools curriculum that was unveiled by the federal government. I will have a guest on standby who will join us right after the break.
The men and women shaping the future of Nigeria. Get to know your representatives at the National Assembly. From lawmaking to constituency projects, we'll take you behind the scenes and inside the chambers of the Nigerian National Assembly. Learn about the bills they are championing, the challenges they are facing, and the impacts they are making in their constituencies. We'll also bring you closer to the people they are serving and the stories that shape their work. Join us on NAS Watch every Friday on Rapid Television at 7 p.m. So get informed, get engaged, and get to know the leaders shaping Nigeria's future.
Nigeria's economy, the global markets, what does it all mean for you? From stock market insights to global financial news you need to know. From Wall Street to the Main Street and of course the marketplace.
Get the answers you need every week on Business Lens with me, Faith Daffer Joseph, as I bring into focus the stories, strategies, and shifts shaping our economy. No angle is missed as I talk about the business, the people, patterns, and possibilities behind them. Welcome to the Business Lens.
Rapid TV, rooted in truth, driven by impact.
From the soil beneath our feet to the tables across the world, agriculture is the heartbeat of Nigeria's future. Yet challenges persist. Limited finance, outdated methods, policy gaps, and untapped opportunities. The Green Line is here to change that. A groundbreaking weekly television feature that connects policy with practice, farmers with markets, and innovation with impact. We dig deep into the full agricultural value chain, from land preparation to mechanization, financing, food preservation, exports, and beyond. The Green Line isn't just a show, it's a national development platform. Join me every Friday at 11 a.m. only on Rapid TV, Star Times Channel 176, and online at www.rbnradiotv.com.
From the heart of Africa, where dreams are born and passion is boundless, a new wave of talent rises. In La Liga, these extraordinary athletes are not just playing the game, they're transforming it.
Danny Rodriguez, the man chasing, it's Lamine Yamal! What a magnificent magnificent goal that
They
is!
shine on the world stage. Watch as they redefine football, inspire millions, and make history. La Liga, where dreams become reality.
All right, welcome back and thanks for staying with us. It's still Rapid Dawn right here on Rapid TV. And before we went on the break, we were trying to
establish
the conversation. And we started by talking about the educational system here in Nigeria. Now, it's important or interesting to note that the federal government has revised the school's curriculum, which is one thing that a lot of enthusiasts, educators has called on the federal government for. Remember countless times right here on Rapid Dawn where we have talked about including certain things that are obtainable now in the society into the school's curriculum. Super important. But much as it is important to include some of these things in the curriculum, what measures have we put in place to implement and or enforce it to ensure that schools actually enforce some of these subjects?
Right.
In school, my school at the time, there was a course that was introduced, and I don't think a lot of schools had it.
Okay.
Moral instruction.
Yeah,
Did
we
you
had
have it?
Yeah, we had it then in primary school.
In primary school, no, I had it in secondary
yeah,
school.
secondary school.
But not many schools included that in the school's curriculum. It was called moral instruction, basically teaching people about national ethics and core values,
Right.
and you know how to behave generally as a person. Not many schools saw the importance of that subject because we would ask questions like, how is it going to impact the educational system? How is it going to impact the lives of the people that actually study it? I personally have always wondered what square root of 3 to 5 to whatever was going to do for me.
But it's mathematical.
What was it going to do?
Lots of persons who love mathematics, engineering, anything that has to do with calculation, one way or the other, they shall find a way to integrate it into their personal lives, you know, and their profession as it is. Yeah, but again, for you who studied art and for myself who studied art, we never really saw the need for it as it is. But if you look at the revision of the school curriculum, the last time it was revised in Nigeria was in 2011. Within 2011 up until 2024, in fact, up until now, you know, it has been very static. You know, the flexibility has not been there, you know, as it is. And truly, there's been so many debates, you know, about the things that we need to do to ensure that education here isn't just about teaching the old things here and there, but bringing in the things really that matter to us as a nation and as a society. And again, the question we ask is, now that it's been revised, how many of the schools have what it takes to actually implement all of these things?
Important.
So beyond the revision, can we take it down to the classrooms? And then from the classrooms, bring those things that have been revised down to the society to make sure that the excellence of education is being achieved, which of course is transformation, you know, for the human and as well for the society.
And you know that we have a lot of schools here in Nigeria, only in the FCT.
Both
we
registered and unregistered.
And unregistered. And even the registered schools we're talking about, not all of them have what it takes to operate as an institution. I tell you, some of them start off as lesson groups.
Right.
So you just notice that. I think that you must have done lessons.
I did.
I think that at every point there's someone who would have done lessons. You know, you came back from school, you passed very well. It's a thing of pride in your neighborhood.
Right.
And when your parents tell the other parent that, oh, you have passed your studies and all of that, then they send their kids to come over to you and to learn during the holidays. It was a very interesting, you know, process. However, some of these schools took it a bit personal because they started to have a lot of people register to come learn during the extramural classes. They opened up as a full-blown institution.
Sure.
Some of them are even registered. But if you see the learning conditions that they put the students that register under their schools at, it's very unfortunate.
Truly.
Now, imagine people teaching science courses without laboratories. You know, some schools actually have these laboratories, but they don't have the equipment in the laboratories to actually carry out this experiment. And experiment, you know how I say that, did you know, it's just like the light bulb moment you have. every single time, learning facts or things that you probably would never have known about. It's the same feeling I got when I saw a red litmus paper turn into blue and a blue litmus paper turn into red. Is that possible? Is it a...
Well,
but anyways, the litmus test,
Yeah.
right? It just proves that there's certain things that you might never be able to learn theoretically.
Yeah, it
but
must be
once you
practical.
see them practically, you never forget. This has been how many years? Over 20 now.
Yeah.
But I still remember it as yesterday because it was practical. So many of these students do not have the opportunity to learn practically. So let's get back to the crux of the matter,
Surely.
which is the revised schools curriculum. And it's important that we have this conversation so we can know the implications of this change. Is it positive? Is it negative? Because of course I know that we have been calling for the change of the curriculum, especially to accommodate the current realities within our climate.
Sure.
But how are we going to ensure that these things are carefully adhered to?
Well, these are the questions that are begging for answers right now. And of course, you established some facts. Most of these schools, started up as just as a hustle ground. Let us hustle. Maybe this could just be a way for us to make money. But now most of the schools, they've been registered. So the next thing to do, especially when it comes to private schools, right? The next thing to do is to make sure that your school is up to standard. And when it gets to government-owned schools, it is also important that they bring in that quality standard, quality education to the society. And I think for me, that's one of the things that a revision of the curriculum is going to do for us. Yeah.
All right. Now to join us for this conversation is Stella Adewalure. She's an educator and director of operations at CEBAR, which is CEBAR. Good morning to you, ma'am.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. It's good to have you join us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right. Let's get on to the conversation already. Now, of course, you are aware of the new schools curriculum that the federal government has introduced. We hear that it has both courses for formal and informal education, all captured in the new curriculum. And then the subjects were reduced, the number of years to take certain classes were also reduced. Now, Nigeria has several reforms. From the 6334 system, which is that which most of us went through, the 6334 system, introduced in 1982 to the Universal Basic Education Policy in 1999. What lessons should we have learned from this past system before unveiling this new curriculum?
Okay, thank you so very much. Number one lesson that we should have learned before going into the new curriculum is considering our cultural background. Now, if we are deploying a document that we want it to be effective, we want it to capture who we are, we want it to give answers, let me put it that way, to provide answers to all things in our hearts or in our mind or in the mind of our parents or in the mind as well. One thing we need to look at our cultural. What makes us Nigeria? That's number one. Number two, another thing we need to look at is where are we as a country and how can we use education as need to be? So once they look at the cultural background, what is the need of that diversity that we have in our nation, which is huge, then if we can answer all of those questions, the next thing is, okay, where are we as a nation? With that, we call audits in the education space, we do school audits. We audit our system as a nation. We audit who we are as a nation. Then we now come together to bring a curriculum that answers all the questions that we may have raised during the audit. And we now come together to put a content that answers, if not all of the questions, most of the questions that we've had during our systemic audits. So those are my thoughts about that.
All right, thank you.
As an educator, when you heard about these reforms, what was the first impression that came to you?
It's a good one. It's a good one. I heard you earlier when you're talking about the curriculum being long overdue. And the change has been done now. But a lot of questions actually came to my mind, and how the quality of consultations that were done for all of these subjects were concluded. One particular program we had that included stakeholders coming together to have a conversation about trying to, introduce to the NCE curriculum. And I remember one of the representative of NERDC was there, and she actually, they broadly speaking, introduced thinking skills into the document, and they have also considered other skills that can be included in our content. So my first impression is it's a fantastic one and it's a step in the right direction. But I have a lot, I said, the quality of consultation, who were the people present in the room, was NAPS considered, private schools, because they are the ones that are at the forefront of education in Nigeria. Were they in that room when all of those decisions were made? I hear you talking about schools that are among that. Yes, we have all of these schools where all of those put into consideration. Those are just my answer. But my initial feeling and thought about it is a step in the right direction. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. While we hear you too, when you say that it's a step in the right direction, many Nigerians worry that the problem is not the policy design, but the implementation. Now, take your mind back to the failed technical and vocational push for secondary schools. And a lot of Nigerians are afraid that this same revised curriculum will face the same fate as that. What do you have to say about this?
I remember yesterday we were talking about the curriculum when we saw that circular, and I'm like, it's good on paper. It's highly good on paper, or very good on paper. But the question that begs answer is, how are we going to implement it? What is the readiness of our teachers? First of all, what is the readiness of schools? What is the financial capacity of schools to implement some of the aspects of some of this curriculum? And when I talk about teachers' readiness, we are asking about teachers that do not even have background in education, which are the large, which yes, they are a very large number in their space. Using Abuja as a case study, we have a lot of people without educational background teaching. That's number one. We have that problem on our end. We have the problem of brain drain on our end at the moment. The good teachers are exiting our system, going out, to teach for greener pasture. We have all of those on our ends. And I would have thought that, so that this does not meet the same fate that documents met, this will not be considered. Implementation strategies should have been rolled out alongside that document. That would have been my suggestion, considering all the problems we have. We have rural areas, we have the urban areas. All of these are some of the challenges that this particular document may face. And let's look at another thing. Let's assume that private schools can implement some, not all, because I was looking at something like solar this, solar that. They could go ahead and get vendors to their schools to do that. But the question is, how many public schools have solar?
Surely.
How many private schools in rural areas even have access to lights? I know there's tailoring there. They can decide to go to that aspect of tailoring. They can decide to go to the aspect of cooking or culinary or all of that, or farming or whatever they want to do. They can decide to go into all of that. But the major question is, we have the facilities to actually drive this curriculum. Do we have the manpower qualified to, drive this curriculum, to teach it the way it needs to be taught? So those are just my initial. It may or may not meet the same fate if everybody decides to come on board and see how they can take a part of the curriculum that they can implement effectively. Also come their, the peculiarity of their location.
Okay.
My thoughts,
All right, let's talk about the reduction of subjects that the review as well has taken into cognizance. We see that primary school students will now take 9 to 12 subjects. Junior secondary school students will take 12 to 15 subjects, and senior secondary school will be around 8 to 11 subjects. So do you think that this reduction strikes the right balance, or does it still leave students overload? Because do you think it leaves them overload, or the balance is there?
Okay, to a reasonable extent, I think the balance is there because, fortunately, in August, I was working with a client and we were trying to review their documents. And this was the major question we had on our ends then, the number of for primary learners and that of secondary learners too. I think then it was about 17 for year 1 to 9. I mean, year 7, which is just 1 to 3. And we're like, how can we merge this? How can we merge this and all of that? And for me, first of all, I think the reduction in subjects is fantastic. And I will tell you why. Number of subjects do not determine the quality of learners we turn out.
Right.
It doesn't in any way, shape, or form. What actually does is how we now expand the content we have to cater to the needs and the needs of our nation as a whole. So yes, it's good that the subjects are reduced, and the introduction of trade subjects, which has been there before, fantastic as well. It is good that we reduce it and the content comes alive. Another thing I say about the reduction in content is, number one, it's going to reduce teachers' workload. Because in schools, you see teachers having 22 periods, 26 periods in a week because of the number of subjects that they have to teach. And one burnout will reduce to a reasonable extent. The number of lesson plans that teachers need to write because they are teaching numerous subjects will also reduce. So yes, it's a very good step in the right direction, that the subjects are now minimal and is focusing on what we should be looking at least for starters.
All right, thank you so much for that one. But let's give a more practical example here, because I shared an experience with my colleague here where we were talking about the fact that from SS1 to SS3, we did about 22 subjects.
Right.
Some of those subjects had nothing to do with what we are practicing right now. Right. I did economics, technical drawing, French, and all of those are very beautiful subjects. So are the courses that are reflected in this new curriculum. But we have countries like the UK, the US, other developed countries, Canada, that do specialized trainings in institutions. And by specialized trainings, I mean they are compulsory courses that a child will take within certain classes, primary and secondary at least, that are foundational. Primary school, basically foundational. Then for secondary schools, there are institutions that are created to tend to specific needs. So let's say in our country, we have knowledge gap when it comes to medicine, for instance. Now, an institution created to tender to that knowledge gap we have. So all the students within the secondary education are not coerced into taking a particular number of subjects. They are only taking subjects that would address the knowledge gap of where they want to fill. Say the students want to be doctors, they want to be lawyers, they want to be teachers. They take courses that only fill in for this position. Don't you think that is a more practical way to deal with the lapse in the educational system than coercing people to take multiple subjects that they might not need eventually?
Fantastic. So before now, that is what we do. Okay. But I would like to say here that I know that our subject combination is still, largely speaking, restricted.
Okay.
You know, but like I said, what we have at the moment is a step in the right direction for starters.
Okay.
The document you're talking about, the British curriculum, is a broad curriculum. What do I mean? It's a broad curriculum that allows learners to combine subjects that fit into what they want to do in the future. All right? To specialize. Thank you. But in Nigeria, we are still limited to arts, science, and commercial, as the case may be, commercial science as the case may be, and humanities as the case may be. For me, I think if we harness even the restrictions. And I will expand that in a bit. So for someone in sciences, if you are choosing sciences, we could expand it in such a way that there are examples that are being used by teachers now that are brought into the in delivery. There are examples that curriculum. And what I used to tell, don't forget that whatever document we have is called minimum standard or is a guide. Okay. Teachers are at liberty to expand that document to ensure that it caters to the present need of the learners and the environment and even the future ones. So what I would suggest is, I know we are limited in our subject combination, and pending the time that the subject combination can accommodate all options, teachers can expand it themselves, looking at the realities on ground. So if you are a science student, you don't necessarily have to learn only about chemistry. So what they need to do is open up physics, open up chemistry, and real life ideas. So that's what we call experiential learning.
Okay.
Bringing real life ideas into those, that opens the mind of learners, that even though I'm doing physics and chemistry, I have a variety of options where physics and chemistry can be applied. So also economics, so also arts. Which aspects of life, which aspects of subjects are these subjects relevant to? So because the document says that we are to science, humanities, social sciences, and all of that, does not mean we should restrict our learners. I'm not saying what the document is giving us is good, but as a nation, because we have some of these look up to, we can actually bring in those practices into our practice and delivery in school, and teachers, school owners can accommodate it into their own curriculum, teach effectively. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for expanding that one. Absolutely.
The last thing I will say about that is, now schools are now expected to now, link your combination to right of career and guidance. So I used to work with them in life, has from doctors, lawyers, engineers, and all of. We have photographers, we have content creators, we have media people. So how do you ensure that our teaching and learning processes takes account these jobs that are new around us, but the documents we have does not yet cater to? However, some of the subjects we have at the moment is actually laying the foundation for some of these new jobs that we have around us.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I think she addressed the part where we talked about what the square root of X, Y, and Z can do for us when it comes to mathematical solutions, basically. But one of the things that the Minister of Education said, whilst he was talking about this review, he said that the reform is to make Nigeria compete globally. But looking at all of the things that has been imputed into the reforms, have you seen any key markers that aligns this review or reforms for Nigerians to compete globally?
See, documents are not enough for anybody to compete globally. Implementation and the practicality of the documents is what we equip people to compete globally. What do I mean? Even if we go to UK and bring their documents verbatim, hook, line, and sinker, and in Nigeria we do not implement it well. If we do not implement it well, it's not going to fly. So whatever the documents we are being given, whatever the policy on paper, I would suggest that government and people of Nigeria should zero down on narrow, effective implementation, and that will help help us to go a very long way in ensuring that our learners can compete globally. I'll give you examples. The questioning techniques. How does it relate to what is happening globally? The type of assessment. How does it relate to what is happening globally? Projects that our learners engage. The quality of teaching and learning process. Those are the things that will ensure that we can compete globally. So we have to bring policy that is fantastic and beautiful, on paper without effective implementation and a fantastic quality assurance system that ensures that people follow through what they've been asked to do or what they are expected to do, I think it will just remain policy.
Okay.
My thoughts.
All right. So education spending in Nigeria has rarely crossed 7%, which is far behind UNESCO's recommendation of, I think, 15 to 20%. Now, how can a new curriculum thrive without corresponding investment in teacher training, in infrastructure, and in technology?
The short answer to that is the curriculum cannot thrive. You remember that was where I started from.
Right.
Okay.
When you were asking me feelings, I said my feelings are good about it, but I have a lot of questions. And some of the questions are what you're raising right now. The quality of our work, our teachers, our educators, their capacity, the economic situation in the country, and the infrastructures that are present in most schools. And you see, if we do not start thinking about education as a key factor or a key tool to drive transformation, to drive economic development, to drive transformational change in Nigeria, I think all of our efforts will still be questionable.
Okay.
There's so much you can do without money. Let me just put it that way. There's so much we can do without money, and that played out in JAMB, played out in WAEC, when we are trying to transition into technology and CPD exams.
All right. In 2024, UNICEF also sent out a data that said we have over 10 million out of school children. What does this curriculum mean to children that are out of school? Are we solving the right problems? Because if we still have about 10 million children out of school, but we are changing the curriculum, it looks like we have diverse problems, but we are solving one and not paying attention to the actual problem.
Thank you. You see, these out of school children, I was smiling when you mentioned it. This is something I had a conversation about last week with my director. You see, when I first of all answered the question about my affiliation, cultural need. Now, if all of these are not considered, I will consider actions as reactionary. Reactions that we are just reacting to our needs. We are not diagnosing our needs to act on them. So if we have this high number of out-of-school children in Nigeria, and we are bringing in a curriculum that is intensive. For one, curriculum reform is not, or curriculum upgrade is not the solution to out-of-school children's problem. Number one is economic upgrade.
Okay.
It's economic upgrade because out-of-school children do not have houses to live in. Sometimes their parents are in the rural areas. Some of them live on walk. Some of them live in bushes where there is no network, where there is no light. They only have the fees to their school. Some of them don't even have schools in their neighborhood or in their community. So it does not translate to anything to out-of-school children. That's my short answer.
Okay.
It doesn't at all. It does not bring account their need into the curriculum reform. For me, the curriculum reform is focusing on the urban areas in Nigeria.
Of course, you've talked about this, the economy. You mentioned the economy when you talked about the out-of-school children, which also brings us to the fact that parents are really struggling when it comes to even paying the fees and making sure that their children remain in school. And now there's a reform that we have. Definitely, parents are supposed to also have a role to play in the implementation or the actualization of the reforms, the parents, communities as it is. But in situations like this, where the economic situation is still biting deep into the fabric of our society, how do we bring a balance? How do parents and communities now, also put in their input towards the actualization and implementation of the revised curriculum?
Okay, the first thing is what we call orientation or sensitization. So I think it's time for parents, especially parents that do not value the need of education, to be sensitized and informed that Well, you might be in a location where education is not easily accessible. You might be in a location where the schools there do not meet with the quality of learning in other areas. But the first thing is that because those things are there, does not mean your children should now be walking on the streets or be farming, all of that. That's number one. Number two, I think it's high time we go into community reforms, community impact projects. What do I mean? Not projects that will be funded by anybody, but projects that community we come together. And there are some communities in Nigeria that are doing it. We come together to form that. In this community, we want our children to go to school. How can we go about it? I remember when we were serving, they used to post some of us into very rural areas. That coppers are the ones that will gather children under the tree and they will teach them. So once there's a change of mindset, and parents are not looking at economy as an excuse not to allow their children to have access to education, and communities can begin to come together to that, okay, government is not getting to us at the moment. What can we do as families or as community in this particular location to, at least for starters, our children understand that there is what is called education. There is what is called writing and reading. There's what is called numeracy and all of that in our environment, so that when opportunities come, our children, are in the position to, enjoy such opportunities. So for starters, I think masses will have to take up some of those responsibilities while the governments do their own part as well. That would be my suggestions for now.
All right. And just to follow up, if this curriculum succeeds, what are the expectations, from Nigeria, say within now and then, within now to 5 or 10 years time? What kind of changes can we be seeing, in the educational sector?
Yeah, if the curriculum succeeds and if answers are available, especially for public schools, I keep hammering that because I work on projects and I see I see a lot on the field, and it's disheartening. If the curriculum succeeds, if finances come up, yes. Number one thing we'll start seeing, which it's been happening is we'll see young entrepreneurs, we'll see young SMEs. And SMEs, they contribute a lot to the overall economic growth of any nation. Sure. You'll see people that are self-reliant. However, all of that will be good and good if other factors of production or other factors that support economic growth are put into consideration, like lights, good roads to transport goods from one location. So the success of the curriculum is largely dependent on other factors that are on the table of our government to make available. And what am I talking about? The basic amenities. Okay. If the basic amenities are there, the curriculum will succeed, because teachers will have lights to teach. They are likely going to have either computers or phones that they can charge to teach these learners. Even if the computer is not in the hands of everybody in the school, the minimum gadgets that they can manage it and use it to simulate learning, for these learners to learn and see what is happening in the bigger world. Yes, it will succeed, but it will only succeed if other factors that contribute to the success of any curriculum implementation are put in place.
Talking about succession, now we have seen a lot of antecedents play out in the educational sector. I'll give you an example of the official age to get into the university. A certain administration pegged it at about 15, 16. There's just been disparities. And then another administration comes up and changes the official age with which another child can get into university. Now, we will give Nigeria credit for coming up with these beautiful policies. But the major problem we have is that these reforms often die with each administration. Now, what can be done to ensure that this new policy outlives this government and it becomes a part of a sustainable long-term vision?
It's this question is actually systemic and is endemic.
Okay.
My simple suggestion would be that Nigerians our leaders, politicians should be patriotic. And what do I mean?
Okay.
We need to start having the interest of the masses at heart. That needs to be what is driving us to go into office, not show-offs. Sorry to use the language, because particular policy and if a particular reform is good, another government should not come in and override it so that they can see that I'm the one doing it. We've had cases of people saying that if they complete another regime's project, people might not know that they are working. We can use one of our ministers as study. There were a lot of abandoned roads that emerged on ground. It did not say because those roads were started by somebody else and were not completed that he would not do it. He completed most of the road and is constructing a new one. The same thing applies to policies. If you get into office and the policy is on ground, if you have our interest at heart as a leader, nothing stops you from continuing that particular reform or another policy or making it better. It's not that you just threw it in the bin and come up with your new idea so that we can hear you that you are talking or you are speaking or you are working. You are doing something. That does not necessarily tell the masses that you are actually working. What it's telling us is that we do not have leaders that have our interest at heart, my humble submission.
Okay. Conclusively, let's hear your conclusive thoughts about this school's new school's curriculum. Do you think it's just a another beautifully crafted document, or it's going to work? What's the possibility? Give us a scale of possibility.
That's a difficult one. A scale of possibility is in two sides, actually. A scale of possibility for private schools, yes, it will work. But a scale of possibility for public schools, so I'll give private schools maybe 5, then I'll give the public schools 1. Wow. Because in that space, there's a lot that needs to be done curriculum to see light of day, how much more, thriving or bringing in results.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Your insights were quite enlightening and impressive. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. And you too. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, we have had Miss Stella Adewalure, and she is the educator and director of operations at SIBA. And yeah, she has said quite a lot.
I'm telling you.
Quite a lot about it. Very helpful insights she's had there.
Right. Looking at the scorecard, the scale of possibility.
5 to 1.
5 to 1. And that brings us to what the government does or is doing when it comes to government-owned schools. So you see that people have more trust, more faith, more belief and hope on private schools than the government-owned schools. Whereas we're supposed to have more faith in the government schools because the schools are being funded by the government. The materials, the technologies that we need, the equipments that are needed are supposed to be found first in the government schools. But we don't see all of those things happening. Rather, we see these things happening more with the private schools. And that is the reason that private schools are more expensive even now than the government schools. Now, how many parents, how many families can actually afford to take their children to private schools? And that's the big question that we're asking here. So I think, beyond the reforms, the government has got to look into the schools that they champion, the schools that has been created by the government to ensure that these reforms are there, they're effective in these schools, and then we have more Nigerians attending the public schools, not just because they can't afford to attend the public schools, the private schools rather, but because the public schools have what it takes to train students, in all cadres of life.
And that's funny because there used to be a time where a lot of equipment or requirements to teach a child in a school. At least, even if everything fails in the government school, we know that they have active and very functional laboratories where children can actually learn. But this is the opposite, as their laboratories are empty.
Right.
Sometimes, allocations are being made for this, or no provision at all for those allocations. And it's very unfortunate. But the truth is, the educational system, if we must deal or we must have reforms in the educational system, then the public schools need to function properly.
Exactly.
I remember the last time we had the MD of Nelfund right here with us in the studio, and we were talking about why that loan does not cover for private institutions. And he said something. He said the private institutions came as a result of stepping in to fill the inadequacies of the public institutions. And one will think that, having noticed these inadequacies, the public schools are going to step up to reclaim their integrity. Is still the same thing, because this curriculum is not, I don't think it was worked to function in public institutions, because public institutions do not have what it takes to carry out these cost requirements. We are talking about content creation.
Right.
You need gadgets to carry out content. And you don't need just any gadgets. You need gadgets that are up to standard.
Of course.
Would the institutions be able to provide drones? Would the institutions be able to provide quality cameras and video cameras? Would they be able to pay efficient videographers and drone operators to teach in these institutions?
Now, they are supposed to.
They are supposed to, but would they be able to pay?
And that's where the problem again is,
Yes.
right? Talk about the solar installation, right? Talk about robotics and AI being introduced. All of these things are supposed to be easier in the public school.
Certainly.
A lot more easier in the public school. But let's even start from their structure. Very dilapidated. Most of the buildings are already cracked. Most of the schools owned by the government or public schools do not have seats where students can sit on. Their chairs are totally broken.
Core members carry it on as personal projects.
Because she mentioned that most times during the time that she served, corpers were the ones teaching students. Up until now, it still happens. Corpers are still posted to schools to go and teach. And as of 2024, I remember a corper friend of mine mentioning to me that whilst he was in the place where he was serving, he had to help to build certain structures there with his own personal money. He had to help to bring in certain materials into that particular school with his own personal money.
Yeah.
And these are things that should be provided naturally by the government in these public schools. Now, if they've drafted, what's the word now? A budget for it, and it is not being effectively disbursed, what are they doing to ensure that those that the monies have been given to, they are accountable for it? And that's another thing that most of the public schools do not have accountability, and that plays out in almost every cadre of our government here in Nigeria.
And if you ask me, the reform should start with teacher trainings. If you hear her, maybe 70% or 60%, for sake of lack of accurate data, of people who actually teach are not trained to teach.
Yes.
Most of the people who the core members that you charge with the responsibility of teaching other students, were not trained to teach.
Not at all.
You see, so if you are teaching, if you are leaving the passing on of knowledge to untrained teachers, what is the quality of education do you think? What quality of education do you think those students will have?
Always poor.
So I think the government should also invest in teacher trainings where people who teach are now specialized. So this is one area I think the curriculum might be able to sort out. But do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the amenities to implement this curriculum? Anyways, I think this is pretty much what we can take on this conversation about the new schools curriculum that was unveiled by the federal government. Remember, you can share this video to friends and families and everyone who still has a bit of confusion as to whether or not this curriculum is effective, because we're streaming live on YouTube, but you can rewatch every single episode at Official Rapid TV. We also are active across social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, which is now X, and TikTok at Rapid TV. We have a website where you can catch us live every single episode from 7 a.m. to every other program that we have lined up here for you at www.rbnradiotv.com. My name is Martha Alu.
And I am Victor Ake. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
the men and women shaping the future of Nigeria. Get to know your representatives at the National Assembly. From lawmaking to constituency projects, we'll take you behind the scenes and inside the chambers of the Nigerian National Assembly. Learn about the bills they are championing, the challenges they are facing, and the impacts they are making in their constituencies. We'll also bring you closer to the people they are serving and the stories that shape their work. Join us on NAS Watch every Friday on Rapid Television at 7 p.m. So get informed, get engaged, and get to know the leaders shaping Nigeria's future.
Nigeria's economy, the global market, what does it all mean for you? From stock market insights to global financial news you need to know. From Wall Street to the main street and of course, the marketplace.
Get the answers you need every week on Businessless with me, Faith Dafa-Joseph, as I bring into focus the stories, strategies, and shifts shaping our economy. No angle is missed as I talk about the business, the people, patterns, and possibilities behind them. Welcome to the Business Lens.
Rapid TV, rooted in truth, driven by impact.
From the soil beneath our feet to the tables across the world, agriculture is the heartbeat of Nigeria's future.